Hey, what's up everybody? Back to playing with old Blue out here. Starting to get back on it. Trying to figure out a few things. Trying to figure out the turbo setup. There's some log manifolds and cast manifolds out there, but everything I check on is on back order, so kind of just seeing what kind of ideas I can come up with for the turbo system. I've got a few parts ordered and plenty of body work to do, so as I order parts, put parts on, plan the next step, I'm going to keep chugging away at the body work. So I'm going to block on the doors a little bit, see if I can't get them ready for final prime, or at least see where they're at in the process. So it seems like, you know, you can't just, unless you can afford it, just buy parts and throw at it. Also, everything I check on, half of it's on back order. So I'm ordering what I can, going to try to create what I don't have and just make it work. So like I say, this is not a ABCD process. This is a A to Z backslash turn around zigzag to the Q and S, and there might be a F in there somewhere. There's a 7 in there somewhere. I don't even know the rest of the alphabet. So keep hanging out. We'll keep chugging along. So this is my first turbo build, my first LS build really. So I keep coming up with parts, but half the time they're not the ones that I want or need. Here's an example: is if I go with this stock manifold turned upside down, the coil, it's not going to work right there next to it. And I got the wrong coil for these Holley LS tall valve covers. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I may mount them up where they run back down and around, or I may mount them down here somewhere. I don't know. A lot of figuring out to do, but we'll get there. Alright, so I primed these doors about 6 months ago. It's been about 6 months since I messed with these doors. I put Vibrance VP 2050 on there. It's a high build epoxy. It's a great primer. It does get pretty hard after it cures out. It takes usually about, I'd say once you let it sit a week, it's pretty hard. The good thing about that is that it locks everything down. You're not going to have things ringing out, showing repair work, different layers, things like that. So it's a great primer. And like I say, it's been 6 months since I messed with these doors. So I'm trying to remember where I was on them. I think I just did the initial priming. So I'm going to block it with 120. As hard as this is, I need something somewhat coarse. block it with. 180 is just not quite coarse enough. It takes a while to cut it with 180. Don't want to step up to 80. Just don't want those size scratches on it. So 120 is where I'm at. I'm gonna block over this thing and get it as straight as I can, and then we'll take it from there. We'll see what it needs. I have to look back at the videos, but I took it down to bare metal, got it as straight as I could, and then I put some filler on it, got that somewhat straight, and then I primed it to kind of lock it all down and give me a surface to work on. So I think that's where I'm at. I'm gonna block it down, see if there's enough material on here to get rid of most of it. If not, we'll do a little bit of filler. But that's where we're at. We're gonna block away and see how it comes out. So here's something to keep in mind too, is way back before we took this door off of the truck, when the fender was still on it, I had lined the door up to make sure that the door was in the right spot, and I lined the fender up to make sure the fender and the door came together like I wanted them to. So now I'm going to block this down, remembering the whole time that this edge lined up with the fender. So I do not want to change that. I don't want to add any filler to make that edge, you know, that body line any taller, thicker. I want to maintain the original gap between the door and the fender. So just keep that in mind. You don't want to pile up filler. You don't want to change. You don't want to beat on it and change that body line, the metal, where it's at, high or low. Where it's at is where it's supposed to be. You got to maintain that as you work this entire door. But maintain your body lines that you already established, or your panel alignment that you already established. Everything's blocking out really nice. It's looking good. There's one spot up here where I'm still showing guide coat, so I know that's low. I'm starting to go through my filler, so I know that's high. There's another low spot, so that tells me this end of the panel has some waves to it. Another thing that you always keep in mind is you got to know when to stop blocking. You got to know what products you put on. The filler that I'm using is Rage Ultra. It's really easy to sand. The primer I'm using is VP 2050. Once it's set, as long as this has, it's pretty tough. It's pretty hard. So this gray is harder than that white filler. So as I go across it, it's going to sand more of that filler away than it will the primer, just because they are so different as far as how easy they sand. So I'm only going to sand so much. Once I start seeing filler, I'm going to stop, unless I see something this low where I know I'm going to have to wipe this whole area again. Then it's not going to matter so much. But if I was out here where it's nice and straight, I'm going to stop as soon as I see filler, because I don't want to create a dip where it sands that filler real easy, but it's kind of difficult to sand the primer around it. If you see bare metal, like this spot in the middle, that gray is starting to show, that's your bare metal coming through. Once you start going through the filler and you start seeing metal underneath, it's time to stop, because you can sand all you want and the metal's not going anywhere, and everything else around it will disappear. So to create a high spot. Anyway, keep that in mind. Something to think about when you're blocking. So know when to stop. So there's a lot to think about when you're blocking. Another thing, we talked about when to stop. You know, when you start going through, here's the spot where I started going through and seeing filler. but it's pretty much sanded all the way around it, so it's time to stop. One place you want to avoid is the body lines, like on this C10 truck door. That's a very sharp body line that you have here. So even though I'm blocking as much as I can, you know, blocking is really good, taking a lot of material off, I don't block over this body line because I want it to remain sharp. You'll see it's still got some shine to it, it's still got some guide coat right on the body line itself. And that's how I know that I'm not sanding it completely off. There's a few places where most of it's gone, but as a general rule, I'm staying away from that body line. I'm going right up to it, but I'm not letting my sandpaper sand off that edge. That's one of the last things you'll do. We're going to maintain this body line as sharp as possible. And then when we prep it for paint, that's when we're going to just slightly round it. And that slight rounding is going to make this thing look laser straight. Because we kept it straight, then we round it together at the end, and it'll look really, really good. So I'm going to go around the top of this door. I'm going to use a smaller stick now, and it's a little bit thinner, so it's got a little bit of flex to it. And I'm going to go around on all the flat spots that I can get to, and I'm going to block this. Just make sure it's straight as I need it to be. Around these doors are a little bit wavy sometimes, so you're going to have a little bit. If it's a dent, we'll fill it. If not, we'll just block it on out. I'll use the stick as much as I can so that I maintain getting it straight, finding dents. Also, like I covered this before, but always remember you want to keep as much surface area of this stick, of your block, in contact with the surface you're blocking to get the best result. I wouldn't block it this way because it's rounded from one side to the other, just slightly. So when I block, I'm only hitting the middle. I want to turn it long ways where it's got the most surface contact with what I'm blocking, and block it like that. We'll go with that X pattern again and keep taking it down to find any dents we can find. And then we'll get a softer block, and with the soft block, we'll turn it sideways a little bit and block over it to round it all together. We'll use the soft block in these areas that change shape, like here and here where we can't get to with the stick without creating a groove because it only sands in one spot. That's where we use the soft block to contour to the surface we're sanding. So these low areas where the guide coat is still showing, that's what I want to fill. But I'm gonna put a coat over the whole area. If you try to put a strip here and a strip there, while you're sanding this, you're sanding that low, so it creates waves. So when you work filler, you work the area and work this whole entire low area from here over to the front of the door. Also, where it's showing the guide coat, it's not sanded. It has to be sanded for the filler to stick to it. So before I sand it, I'll mark where I want to put my filler with a pencil, because once I sand these off, they look like everything else. You want to make sure you put your filler in the right spot. That's basically the area that I want to work in. one time before, but in case you didn't catch it, I'll go over it once again. Just a quick time-saving tip today. As long as when you push everything out of the way and nothing valuable falls off the other side, there's no need to clean up. All right, I guess that's it for now. That filler we just wiped on there, it has usually a minimum of about a 2 beer drying time. And since we're a little low on supplies, we're gonna have to go get some. So we'll let this sit till tomorrow. We'll get back to it. But for now, thanks for joining us. If you haven't already, come on, subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you over here. And we'll keep plowing away at this C10. Hopefully we'll get her done before too long. See y'all next time.